This is Python's Paradise. This is your host, Greg Gilbert, aka the Python Hyena, straight out of Fredericton, New Brunswick, Canada, but rocking a beautiful Christmas Toronto background because I consider that my true home. And folks, I have a three-time guest and a three-time tribute on here today. It's my third tribute to George Litto, who is unfortunately no longer with us, but he did produce this quadruple of Dress to Kill movies I have. We got Dress to Kill in 4K.
Yeah, they just made it in 4K.
Yep. We got Dress to Kill on Blu-ray. And we got Dress to Kill the Criterion Edition.
Oh, I love all the Criterion interviews.
Yeah. You would think I
Well,
liked that film or something. Folks, we have the daughter of George Litto on here today, and of course, she had made a documentary about him, and she come on here today to talk about that and what else is happening. Folks, I give you the awesome Andria Litto. How do you do, Andrea?
Greg, it's nice to see you. How are you?
I love your glasses. I love the pink glasses.
Thank you. You
You know,
know,
is
I,
that a Barbie thing?
no, I was a pink girl long before Barbie. When I had a producing deal at Warner Brothers in the early 2000s, and I used to show up to work in like pink suits and stuff like that. And women would say to me, men aren't going to take you seriously if you're wearing pink. And I said, honey, if they don't take me seriously after 5 minutes of talking to me to see how intelligent and how experienced I am, and they dismiss me because I'm wearing pink, that's their problem.
You know what? I don't mind wearing pink at all. And I've often said, well, I'm going to tell you,
I love
sports,
pink.
I've got sports jackets here, and I've got every color of dress shirt that goes with it, including pink. And black will go with pretty much anything. Now, I've often said, anybody that says men can't wear pink, well, I look at WWE superstar Bret Hart. He wore pink and black.
You know what? Pink is not exclusively a feminine color. It's just a pretty color. And if it looks good on you and you're straight or you're gay or you're female, you can wear it. You wear whatever you want to wear. Society has no right to tell you that one color or another is befitting one thing and not another. But that's kind of what my documentary is about. It's called My Father Moves Mountains. And it's about the fact that my father, George Litto, repeatedly defied convention. Pink being a girl's color is a convention, right? It's a convention created by society. My father stood up for the blacklisted writers who were unable to work and were censored for over 2 decades. And he put them all back to work under their own names, including Waldo Salt, Michael Wilson, Ring Lardner Jr., Dalton Trumbo, Arnold Pearl, Abram Polonsky, Paul Jericho, Ian Hunter. I mean, it got so popular after he had done this. Blacklisted writers suddenly became in vogue. I mean, after 2 decades of censorship, they were suddenly the cool cats. They were the cool kids in the room. That his other clients started pretending they were blacklisted writers because the blacklisted writers were getting so much work. So my dad's joke is that he represented 17 of the Hollywood 10 because his other clients were claiming blacklisted status. I mean, I think it's funny that they were claiming a status that made you a pariah only years before my father had gotten involved. But that's how much one person, and he wasn't the only person, but he was the one who was the most consistent and the most persistent. I mean, obviously, Kirk Douglas was the first with Spartacus, but Dalton Trumbo was still broke afterwards and still having a hard time finding jobs under his own name. It's not like Dalton Trumbo did Spartacus and the floodgates opened. It didn't happen that way. It took a concerted effort. And so my father started with Waldo Salt and Midnight Cowboy, and then it was Ring Lardner Jr. and M.A.S.H. and Michael Wilson and Planet of the Apes, and then Dalton became his client, and Dalton did Papillon, and Abram Polonsky did Tell 'em Willie Boy is Here, and so on, and Arnold Pearl did Cotton Comes to Harlem, and so on and so forth. And all of a sudden, the floodgates did open, and there were producers like Ingo Preminger and others who were, you know, willing to do these things. They weren't as afraid as some of the others who absolutely would not because they were afraid of the studios. And really, defying convention just requires courage and to know who you are. My father knew exactly who he was, and he knew exactly the kind of person he wanted to be, and he didn't want to be one of the sheep. He wanted to be someone who stood up for what was right. An artist's right to free speech, our constitutional right in the United States to free speech under the First Amendment and free assembly, guarantees you the right to be a communist or a Marxist or an existentialist, anything, even a fascist. It guarantees you those rights. I don't have to agree with you. My father didn't have to agree with their point of view. But as long as they weren't promoting hate speech, violence, you know, discrimination, which they weren't, they were actually promoting inclusion. Um, the Constitution says very clearly that we have that right. And I want to just sort of make a note. I saw a lot of things during the election, the American election, where people were saying celebrities shouldn't talk about who they're voting for. Excuse me, that is that celebrity's First Amendment right. And when we start abridging people's First Amendment rights because we don't agree with them, because we don't like them, what we're saying, or what they're saying, or like that particular celebrity, or agree with that particular point of view, we go down a slippery slope in which we start abridging everyone's rights. Now, I understand that celebrities have more visibility than other people, and therefore, when they speak their mind, more people are going to hear it. But here's the thing, you don't have to listen. You don't have to look at their social media. You don't have to agree with what they have to say. You have the right to disagree with what they say. You have the right to not listen to their records or see their movies or read their books. That's how you can exercise your First Amendment right. And that is our responsibility as citizens to protect each other's First Amendment rights, to protect all of our constitutional rights. And the minute we stop protecting each other's constitutional rights is the minute we've allowed politicians to divide us. And when they divide us, they divide and conquer. And then they're not after our best interests. They're only out for their own. We can only hold them responsible for our best interests when we as a people, we as a nation, we as citizens of our nation, whether it's the United States or Canada or any other Western nation that has a constitution that guarantees free speech and the right to protest your government, when we as people protect each other's constitutional and most basic human rights. Because I don't agree with everything everybody does all the time. In fact, I don't, even as a liberal, there are many liberal causes that I don't agree with. As a matter of fact, I don't agree with cancel culture.
I don't agree with that either, and I think free speech is definitely under attack.
Everywhere.
It's everywhere, and
But
that
hate speech is
is
not
yeah.
free speech. Hate speech and discriminatory speech and speech that incites violence is not free speech. At least in the United States Supreme Court made that ruling very clear. So that said, cancel culture is not about hate speech. If you're canceling somebody because they promote hate speech, that's different. Yes, please. They're not exercising their First Amendment right. They're exercising something else. They're attempting to abridge someone else's rights by inciting violence or discrimination towards them. That said, cancel culture, when you say something somebody doesn't like, or you disagree with someone's personal point of view, like I can say, for example, that I don't agree with this whole, I'm believe in being reasonably sensitive to people's creed, gender, sexual persuasion, anything they want to do in their lives, right? Be reasonably sensitive. But I don't believe that we should be censoring everybody, this woke ideology of we can't say this and we can't say that, right? That is absolutely unforgivable because
You,
then you're abridging someone else's right to free speech. And by doing that, the left has become just as bad as the right who is book banning. What is the difference?
I'll tell you something I'm getting a little fed up with, and I pretty much like you're probably the biggest conversation I've had all week, except my coworker. Um, I work overnights. I'm not around a lot of people. And I'll tell you one thing that really taps my ass about the whole thing is it seems to me, and I get so tired of hearing the term the white man or white man. And it's like, it's right now, it's to the point where it's okay to be racist against white males, especially straight white males. And I'm like, when did that become acceptable? Now, me personally, I have friends in all areas, whether they're gay. I don't have any trans friends, but I see trans at the conventions I go to, but I'm not around enough of them to, you know,
To
but
have
I
any.
do see them at the conventions. Um, but I definitely have friends who are gay and male, female. My supervisors, uh, well, one of my jobs, I've got two cleaning jobs. One of my supervisors is female. I got no problem taking orders from females. Um,
That's nice to know.
no, I'm serious. Like uh, I
No,
think I
I
think
understand what you're saying. You don't like being targeted, but I'm just going to point something out to you. Until recently, you were the only group that wasn't targeted. So welcome to the party. I'm sorry it's happening. I don't think it's right for any group to be targeted. But unfortunately, I think what's happening to white males is they're finding out how everyone else has felt for the last couple hundred years in this country. And yeah, you don't like it any more than we have as a woman being targeted. I'm Italian, but sometimes I'm confused with Latina, so I'm often, lumped into a status of other Hispanic. And and I understand being nebulously ethnic. Sometimes that means I get discriminated against both for being a woman and for being nebulously ethnic. I think white straight men are just experiencing what it's like for the rest of us to have been discriminated against or targeted or hated on. And since you never experienced it in the history of American society until recently, it's quite a shock, whether because the rest of us grew up with it. We're born
yeah, but I
with it.
didn't support that kind of thing either. Like I wasn't
Well, I
racist to
know it's not
anybody
your
or
fault,
you
but
know.
I don't support that kind of thing either. I don't hate white males who are straight either. But I mean, I judge people based on the content of the character. I mean, I really do live by the Martin Luther King philosophy. That said, I'm still maligned. I'm lumped in with other women who are, for example, terrible drivers and can't park. I can parallel park better than most people I have ever met, and I'm a woman and I can get into a spot with 2 millimeters on each side and three maneuvers because I learned how to drive in Italy, so we have tiny parking spots there and I can drive a stick. Which, I went to my mechanic one day and they were going to give me a loaner car and they said, "Oh, I'm sorry, we only have manuals. We don't have a car for you." And I said, "Well, why isn't a manual a car for me?" "Well, you don't know how to drive it." I said, "I'm sorry, do I have a sign on my forehead that says I don't know how to drive manual?" "How do you know that?" I said, "I actually do know how to drive a manual because I grew up in part of my life in Italy and that's the only thing they offer."
I can't believe they came to that conclusion.
Well, but see, that's the point. We live with it every day. And we learn to laugh at it or blow off steam about it because God knows we hear it all the time. And but white males are only just starting to experience what that feels like. And since they never had to, I guess you have slightly thinner skin than the rest of us who have built up quite a callus to such things. So my advice to you, Greg, is don't take it personally. It doesn't mean that you personally supported these things. In fact, if anything, you might be able to find a kindred spirit in saying, yeah, I agree. There are some really terrible straight white Christian males out there who are trying to make life harder for the rest of us, myself included. Take it as an opportunity to find solidarity as opposed to being offended. That would be my advice to you because that's the truth. And I think we as a society need to find more of what our common our what we have in common with each other than rather than our differences. And when you can take the opportunity to find a moment where you have commonality as opposed to having division, take it. You know, you can flip the coin any way you want. You can change the perception of anything any way you want, depending on how you react to it, right? I mean, I grew up in the movie business. I was on my first set in the 80s on one of my dad's movies called Kansas with Matt Dillon and Andrew McCarthy, which never quite got the distribution it should have because the company that he was dealing with was asinine. But anyway, that's another story. But that said, you know, I grew up in a time where harassing women on sets and putting their hands on your asses was like there was no Me Too. There was nobody to complain to. You had to learn how to deal with it. And you could complain and lose your job or make, or make a nuisance of yourself, or you could figure out how to handle that person yourself. And that's what I did, and then I found the other women on set who had the same problem as me, because I was sometimes the youngest person on set. And I would, sort of we band together because there was strength in numbers. So if I knew somebody was troublesome, I would never put myself in that position, or I'd try to get somebody or have somebody around that could, protect me or keep an eye out. Or sometimes I'd just say, hey, listen, you put your hands on me again, I'm gonna fucking sock you. And sometimes that's all you needed to say. I did slap a couple of people. I backhanded somebody one day because he put his tongue down my throat because I was closing my eyes in front of a fan when it was 110 degrees out on set. You know?
Wow.
Didn't even look. I just went,
Well, this movie
"Yeah,
has everything.
right,
I don't fall into that category because this has all the stuff we talked about.
right. Trans rights. I mean, this
It
is
has
the first movie
trans,
to
it's
feature
got
a trans lead, you know? It's got a hooker, it's got an unhappy
I
housewife having
love
an
Nancy
affair.
Allen. I could watch her jump that barricade. I could just watch that over and over.
Oh, the subway turnstile.
I love that when she hurls herself over that, you
She's
know?
fabulous. I know her personally, and I have to say, she's really a lovely human being. She's not just a wonderful actress, she's a lovely human being.
I think you were
And,
instrumental in her coming on here.
well, I think I had a little to do with it.
Yeah,
But
yeah.
if I also may, I want to tell you some wonderful announcements. So, the film My Father Moves Mountains has won the Silver Anthem Award for film and television for human and civil rights. Surprise, surprise. Human and civil rights. And the television winner, so I won for film, the television winner was none other than Jon Stewart and The Daily Show. So my film won in that caliber of an award. And I have been, hint, hint, Jon Stewart, I have been trying to get a hold of you to get on your podcast because of my film, which was done completely independently without all the money of Comedy Central and all the backing of, well, say, Jon Stewart, um, can get win an award in the same caliber and field and level as yours. I think since our politics are aligned, you ought to have me on your podcast so we can talk about this. But
Hmm.
that's not the only thing. I was just I won an award at the All Around Festival in Amsterdam for the film, and the film is currently at the London Liftoff Festival. So if you're a fan of the film and you want to watch it, it's on the London Liftoff site, and it's also on the Anthem Winners site. And then I just accepted an offer from a big company to sell my father's library to a big company so that his films Obsession, Over the Edge, and he owns an interest in That Cold Day in the Park, which is, of course, by Robert Altman, starring Sandy Dennis. It's Altman's homage to Hitchcock. Um, I can't say the name of the company yet because we haven't concluded the deal, but I have accepted an offer. So my father's films will reside in a very large and important library in perpetuity after I am gone, which makes me very happy. And we are in discussions to make a remake, dun, da, 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 of Obsession. So if you are an Obsession fan, get on the internet, please, voice your opinion because, hey, we think we're going to make a wonderful remake out of it because it's a wonderful story, a psychological thriller about a man who has incredible regret because he thinks his wife and daughter die in a terrible accident. And I won't tell you the rest if you haven't seen it because I don't want to spoil it.
It's
But
interesting because Obsession took a lot of hints from Hitchcock's Vertigo.
right, well, it is actually a homage. I'm not going to say ripoff. Homage to
Oh,
Vertigo.
it's not a ripoff.
Not a
One
ripoff at
thing
all.
about De Palma, I find was inspired by Hitchcock,
Of
and
course.
a lot of it. I love his horror films best.
Yeah.
De
Well, Carrie.
Palma's. Yep.
Carrie is fantastic. You
Yeah.
know, Dress to Kill, I think Dress to Kill, in my opinion, is the best. Carrie and Dress to Kill are his two best
I
thrillers.
love Dress to Kill the best out of the bunch. I love
I know
Carrie.
Blowout is a favorite, but I think Dress to Kill is actually an incredible movie. And it's such a brave film. It was so brave of him to make that film in that time period.
Hmm.
1980, to have a trans lead is crazy. And my dad, I remember asking him as an adult, because as a child, when the movie came out, I had no clue what I was, what it was. But I remember asking him as an adult, I said, how on earth did you ever have the guts to make that movie in 1980? I mean, given the climate. And this is me asking maybe 20 years later. And he said, I never thought about it. And that's why he succeeded, because he didn't think about the obstacles. He just kept going forward. He made the movie he wanted to make as a producer, and he
Hmm.
just didn't worry about what was in his way. And I mean, I think he probably knew in the back of his mind, but until it presented itself as a problem, he wasn't going to even deal with it. He wasn't even think about it. And that's, I mean, we can talk about The Secret and positive thinking and all of that, but if thoughts are things, so if you think about all the obstacles in your way to getting what you want, then all you're going to encounter are the obstacles. But if you spend your energy thinking about all the ways that you can go forward and succeed and keep plowing your path forward, no matter what is in your way, then you will figure out a way to get through it, you know? And that is what I did when I made this documentary. I was stopped by, I had my own funding because nobody wanted to make the movie I wanted to make. I ended up winning awards, so clearly I was right. Nope, everyone wanted me to make it a different way. Everyone had a different point of view of how to tell my father's story, which I think is incredibly arrogant, by the way.
Really?
I just like, really, exactly, really? You think you know his story better than me? Okay. Um, and then I had the pandemic that stopped me for 2 years. I couldn't film. My father died, in 2019. So I only the footage I had was the only footage I could use. So I had to figure out a way around it. There were people who didn't want to be part of the filming, or, Brian De Palma wasn't well enough. And so therefore I couldn't get him on camera. Um, there were some impediments, but I figured out my way around it. And here I sit with a film. Oh, is that Skittles?
Skittles? Skittles, you're not prejudiced either, are you?
Well, Skittles black and white. So how could he? How could he be?
Skittles says he's only prejudiced against people that don't have treats.
Oh, well, that's understandable. My cats have the same problem. If you don't give them chicken treats, they do not like you. So we have these dehydrated chicken treats here, and the cats are absolutely like, it's like crack for them. But but yeah, I
Oh,
made this
buddy.
I made this movie with a lot of impediments. I had an editor who like lost his mind. He went down alpha male rabbit holes on the internet and decided he wanted to take over the movie and that he knew more than me, even though I had, years more experience than him and I had worked at a much higher level than he had ever hoped to work at and probably will ever hope to work at because after he did this, his name is mud around town. because of course I told everyone what happened. And I didn't have to worry about proving it because he wrote me a crazy 63-page manifesto, which, proved his crazy thoughts were absolutely outrageous. And he's credited on the picture, the editor, as Richard Head. So, in case you can't figure out that Richard is the long form of the name Dick, never piss off a producer with a sense of humor. So he's credited as Richard Head because I think that's fair. And and by the way, he tried to have it removed from IMDb. That says editor Richard Head. He tried to get his own name on there, and my lawyer sent a letter to IMDb Pro and explained why it should be removed, and it's absolutely my right to credit the picture any way I want. And because he breached his contract. And yeah. And so he lost that battle. So if you go to IMDb or IMDb Pro, it says editor Richard Head. So I'm a Sicilian woman, and I think The Godfather said it best when they said in Sicily, women are more dangerous than guns.
Well, when I saw the movie Miss 45, I discovered women are more dangerous even with guns.
I don't even need one. So that said, um, my film is doing really well, and I'm really proud of what's happening, and I'm proud of what's happening to my father's legacy. I mean, with the sale of his library pending and the potential remake for Obsession. And we're working hard here. I'm working hard. I'm a one-woman band here. I'm working really hard. When I say we, I mean me and the cats. Because they're just my sort of my cheerleaders. They're also really good at messing up my piles of papers too.
Yeah?
Um, yeah. I have this one cat named Sophie. If she's not around. Oh, she's right here. Hold on one second. I'll go get her.
Oh, yeah.
Sophie. Oh, this is my pile of
Look
mail
at that,
destroyed.
Gee. Look at that.
Look at here. Say hi, Sophie.
Skittles, say hi. Say
She's
hi
like,
to
you just
Sophie.
woke me up from a nap. Why would you do that? This is Sophie. Sophie's a rag doll. I
Skittles is
got her.
purring.
She's a beautiful rag doll. And she loves to take my piles of paper that I stack up either on the floor or on the table,
Mm-hmm.
when I'm trying to file and sort things out. And she likes to sit on them and move them all around. And sometimes she knocks them on the floor, don't you, Sophie? Don't you? Yes, you're a very bad girl, but we love you.
Yeah, when you sleep, does Sophie walk up on top of you and come up and stare in your face?
No, Sophie's favorite thing to do is to sleep at the foot of my bed, and then when she realizes I'm waking up and she wants to eat, she comes over and takes her paw and sticks her paw on your face like this, like, "Hey, wake up. Wake up." She like slaps you in the face. It's pretty funny. And if you don't wake up, she sometimes bites your nose. Not hard, but she like just kind of nibbles on your nose, which I find very amusing. If that doesn't work, sometimes she licks your nose. But usually by that time, I've grabbed her and smashed her under the covers with me and snuggled her until she just says, "Mommy, leave me alone."
I have a CPAP machine,
Mm-hmm.
and Skittles will get up on my bed. He'll walk up on top of me, stare me in the face, and start rubbing against it.
Oh, probably because he feels the vibration. They like the vibration.
I'm like, Skittles, that's not what that's for.
Well, it is for him, because you understand that when you are a cat caretaker, because that's what we are, we're not cat owners. They own us and we take care of them. Everything in this house belongs to them. I just get to live here because I pay the bills and I buy them food.
That does not seem right. Skittles, I want you to go out and get a gazelle. Because you're
No,
related to the king of beast.
this is like cats are the most hedonistic creatures on earth. We can learn a lot from them. They're very zen. They're very chill. And they understand that there is a time to sleep, there's a time to play, there's a time to get love, and there's a time to tell everybody to fuck off. So it's true. Right.
Yeah, right, Skittles. Is that right, Skittles?
Anyway,
Yeah.
on a happier note, um, yeah, I'm really pleased about everything that's happening for my father's estate and his films and my film. And I also have other movies that I'm working on as well. So, I have a six-book series that was published by Simon and Schuster called The Devil's Necktie. That was written by an author named John Lansing, who's also a TV writer, and the infamous Barbara DeFina, who produced all the movies with Scorsese, is my partner on that. I have asked her to join me if she's interested on the remake of Obsession. So we'll see if that works out because the company has to decide if they want to do that and go forward with that. But I'd love to have her. I think it would be really cool if, the producer of all the Scorsese movies and the daughter of George Litto banded together to make the remake of Obsession. So that
Do
would
you
be
have
very
any
cool.
ideas for the lead?
Oh, well, we'd have to get a new script. I have an idea for the new take, which they seem to like. So I don't want to reveal it, but they seem to like the idea, the concept. So we'll see where this goes. I'll probably know more in the next 6 months. And I'll tell you what, when it happens and I have an announcement, I will let you know.
To Emma
So
Stone.
mm, I don't know.
I
I
love
don't know.
Emma Stone. Emma Stone's my crush.
Well, I can see why.
Yeah. No, but how do you feel? Like a lot of people are mixed on remakes. Now, to me, there are remakes I really like. I
Hmm.
love the 1978 Invasion of the Body Snatchers.
Right.
I love the American remake of The Girl with the Dragon Tattoo.
Hmm.
I liked Eddie Murphy's Nutty Professor better than Jerry Lewis's,
Right.
you know?
Well, you know what you have to do is in order to make a remake work,
Hmm.
the first thing you have to do is not imitate the first one.
Hmm.
You cannot recreate the magic of the first one. You have to let it stand on its own. It has to stand on its own 2 feet and be a good film on its own. The script has to be a good script on its own. So if you start with that, but you're using the concept of the original, not trying to emulate the original, which is what I want to
See,
do.
Gus Van Sant needed this advice before he decided to do the Psycho remake.
Yeah, that was crazy. I mean, you
Yeah.
don't remake a classic shot by shot, but and you can't recreate Anthony Perkins. I mean, he was perfect.
Oh,
So, yes, I agree with that. When I heard he was going to do that, I was like, big mistake.
that's
So,
okay. It won like three Razzies, that movie did. So, hey, he got
but yes, the movie has to stand up on its own. It has to be its own film
Hmm.
within the concept and casting wise and everything has to stand up on its own. And that's one of the things that I was talking to the studio with about doing this remake is that we should not remake the exact same story the exact same way. If you're going to tell that story, you can still tell that story. You have to tell it either from a different point of view or a different way, right? So there's your hint.
No, I love the films of Brian De Palma and
I
uh
can't hear me now.
yeah, yeah. Well, they were hoping I had Gloria Nazio on who does the Phantom Palooza thing in Winnipeg for Phantom of the Paradise.
Oh, cool.
They've never had Brian De Palma show up at that, but they have had Paul Williams show up though.
Oh,
So
cool.
yeah,
Well, Brian at this point, I don't think he's well enough, is what I hear.
I
You know,
haven't heard anything, but
sorry,
he
that was
is.
my mail slot. The guy usually comes at 4 o'clock, but today, because I'm doing an interview at this time, he decided to come now.
You know what? Canada Post is on strike right now, so I can't get any mail. I got two Christmas presents I got to mail out, and I'm like, wow. And they picked the wrong time of year to do that.
Or
Because when
maybe they
there's,
picked the right time because if it doesn't really affect you, you don't care.
well, it affects me because I can't mail my parcels out.
Well, let's hope that they settle the strike in favor of the workers. I'm always in favor of the workers. You know,
Yeah.
people should get paid a living wage, a good wage for the job that they do.
Well,
I
people
just
are going to get laid
well,
off in January. That's why I say it's probably the wrong because they'll make it picks up huge around Christmas time, obviously, you know. That's all I'm thinking, but
well, if it's a government job, I don't think they get laid off, but I don't
oh,
know.
do they? Oh,
Mm.
I don't know. I don't know the ins and outs for it, but
Because in America, government jobs, once you get a federal job, you really it's almost impossible to get laid off or fired.
oh, wow. I should get a
Yeah,
government job
you
then.
should.
Get Skittles hired at it so I can stay home and do nothing while he works. He doesn't like that
Understandable.
idea. He doesn't like that
Understandable.
idea. Yeah.
No, cats generally don't like that idea. Sophie's gone back to sleeping right on my pile of papers, so there you go. She's
There you go. There you go.
that's her occupation basically all day long.
So
So
you weren't on set for Dress to Kill?
I was on set for a few days, but obviously a lot of the scenes were very racy, and I was a child. I mean, I was 8 when they
You didn't
made it.
get to see Michael Caine's legs and say, "Wow, those are perfect."
No, I didn't see Michael Caine dressed as a woman. I was on set more for Blowout because I remember they were shooting the hotel scene, in the motel. They were shooting that on a sound stage in Philadelphia. And we would come from school in New York because we were in living in New York, and my dad was shooting. So we'd come on the weekends to Philadelphia. My school let out at 1 o'clock. And so we'd get on the train, and by 3:30-ish, we'd be 4 o'clock, we'd be in Philadelphia, and we'd go to set to see my father um, right after we dropped our bags at our his apartment. And we'd go see him and then go have dinner for his dinner break, or he'd take a break and spend some time with us in the office, have food brought in. But I was often on set, and I remember very vividly being on set in the motel scene with John Travolta and Nancy Allen. A lot because I remember that was they shot that over a couple of weeks, and so I had a couple of weekends there. And I also remember being on set during the Mummers Parade when John
Okay.
Travolta drove into what was then Wanamaker's, it's now Macy's, Wanamaker's window. So that was pretty exciting because we got to see him crash into a window multiple times. Well, his stunt double. But that was fun.
I've heard great things about John Travolta. Did you ever get to interact with him?
Oh yeah, he's always been I met him as a child. And then oh, here, have this. Here it is.
There we go.
Um
There you go. Signed.
a sign, that's what I got when I was 8 years old. And
Yeah.
I still have it. I just pulled it out of a photo album recently because I was going to frame it because my mom had it stuffed in a photo album and didn't tell me about it for years. I was like, "Where is that picture?" And there it is. Um, and then I met him when I was a little girl on set, and then I've seen him over the years. I haven't seen him in a while, but I really enjoyed meeting him, and he's always been very, very nice to me. Whenever I've run into him and I say I'm George Lito's daughter, he's like, "Oh, how's your father?" Obviously I haven't seen him since my father passed away, but with the pandemic and the strike, I haven't seen a lot of people. So it did sort of abridge some of that networking a little bit. But he lives most of the time out of California now. So I think, he comes here when he works. And but I think since his wife and son died, um, he's living a much quieter life, and understandably, because
Yeah.
that's got terribly painful. And but I've always known him to be a very nice guy, and he and Nancy Allen, I understand, are still very good friends, always have been. And by all accounts, from everybody I know who knows him, I haven't heard anyone say a bad
I
word about
haven't either. I haven't either, and I've interviewed a number of people that's worked with him.
I think there are people in this business, and John didn't always have an easy ride. I mean, he
No.
hit it big very early, and then he it was really at the top of the game, and then he crashed, and then he came back. I think a lot of people in this industry, they have ups and downs, like Michael Caine as well. But I think what it does is it humbles you a lot, and it allows you to really realize how lucky you are when you are at the top of your game or at the top of, the field. And um, I think John, one of the things that I have always heard about him and I have sort of recognized within him is that he's extremely grateful for where he is and what he's, achieved in this business, which is very difficult. And he's incredibly talented, so, merited for sure. But he's an incredibly uh grateful person for all that he has achieved and all that he has. Because certainly there are many people who are maybe as talented as he has been that never made it because it's not always about talent. Some of it's luck, some of it's talent. And he's been both talented and lucky, though he had some periods of less luck. But he came back. And I think we all in this business, whenever you're riding high in this business, it is always a bad idea to condescend and to treat people badly because the minute you're on the way down, they can't wait to kick you. And one of the things I'll say about Michael Caine and John Travolta is that when their careers weren't at the top of the game, nobody was looking to kick them. Nobody said negative. I've never heard negative things about John. I've never heard negative things about Michael, you know? And I'm sure people have their, picayune petty stuff with everybody, but as a sort of general rule, I've never heard anything. And I think that's one of the reasons that their careers came back is because they were so well liked. And so here are talented people that are well liked that just didn't get the right job for a while. So, but people kept giving them jobs, and then finally something hit, So there it is.
You
Stay
know,
positive and be nice to everybody. Just be respectful.
Caitlyn Jenner got Woman of the Year. Don't you think Michael Caine should have got Woman of the Year? What do you think? I think Playboy should have had him on the cover. What do you think?
I don't think I'm going to touch that question with a 10-foot pole.
You know what? I bet you if I asked Michael Caine, he would probably feel that, he was ripped off by Playboy by not being noticed. I
Again,
never met Michael
I am
Caine,
not
but
going to touch that.
I bet you Michael Caine would say that. I bet he
You'll have
would.
to ask him, Greg. You'll have to ask him. I don't know.
I bet he would. He'd say, you know what? Whoever they had on there in 1980, I tell you, they couldn't have been sexier than me.
Funny. Well,
So
in my documentary, Nancy describes seeing Michael in full drag for the first time, and it's quite a description. It's quite funny, because he was standing there in his full makeup and wig and everything with a cigar in his mouth.
I remember I told Nancy this during the interview. I said, Nancy, I said, I mean, no disrespect, but you did two things in Dress to Kill that really turned me on. I said, one was the subway rail jump,
Turnstile.
because I did not expect that. And the other thing is, I said, in the police station, when Dennis Franz, who plays a great cop,
Hmm.
says to her, who are you fucking? That look she gets in her face when she goes, fuck you. I'm like, Nancy, you didn't have to do anything but swear at me and jump over a railing.
Well, some women, it's not so much what they do and what they say, it's their energy, their mystique, their aura, right?
I
And
said to Nancy,
Nancy's got it.
I said I said that you were very, very clad next to nude towards the end of that movie. But yet, these are the two things you did that gets my heart beating.
Well,
I'm ver
the underwear doesn't leave very much to the imagination, but the other stuff does.
yeah, yeah. And she told me, she said she had never heard that before, And I said, "Yep."
Well,
I
as a woman, we're always, we're always happy to hear that we can float somebody's boat.
oh yeah. Well,
Especially as we get older, we like hearing that even more. When you're younger, you're like, you roll your eyes at it. And then you get to a certain age and you're like, could you please whistle at me at the construction site? Please? You know?
I can't whistle at all, but if I could, I'd whistle at Nancy.
She still looks amazing.
I don't doubt it. She looked amazing when I had her on the Zoom, I'll tell you that.
Yeah, I've seen her up close and personal and she looks great.
I'll tell you one thing, she had a great reaction to Skittles.
Well, she loves animals. And she also works with a charity that for breast cancer, and I really
Wendy
give
Joe
her credit for
Sperber.
that. Yeah, I really give her credit for that because she uses her celebrity to do something good, not just for women, but in general. I mean, cancer research, even if you're researching breast cancer, oftentimes cancer research as a sort of general rule, you're working on one kind of cancer, you may discover a cure for something else as well, because a lot of research is trial and error, and you find that things that, are intended for one thing work for another. And it is, I give her enormous credit for using her celebrity to help people. And cancer is certainly a very painful and difficult subject for a lot of people and for their lives and for families. And so she works with a company that gives a lot of support to women and their families for cancer, and they do cancer research. And I think that's, you know, fantastic.
I donated to that too to get her to come on the show as well. So
Well, it was a good thing to do,
yeah,
regardless if she came on the show.
yeah.
So,
No, I was happy to get her, I'll tell you that. Took me uh, over 2 years, I believe, to get her on here, but I was happy to get her on. Anyway,
yeah,
I told her the door's open and if she wants to come on again. So
well, there you go. Well, maybe after the documentary is sold, I'll get her to come on with me for a little while. Maybe
is
we'll
she
do a three-way Zoom,
is she
a,
gonna
a,
pink
a menage a Zoom, if you will.
is she going to have pink glasses on?
I'll ask her if she'll buy some. How about that?
Will she jump over a subway right?
You know what? I was at the optometrist when I bought these glasses, and I was just looking for another pair of glasses for my computer that covered more than my like little reading glasses.
I like them.
Thank you. And I was looking at all the expensive glasses, and then I just picked these up because they look cute. And usually when I pick something, it's the most expensive thing on the shelf, right?
Hmm.
But for once in my life, they were the most inexpensive glasses in all the glasses I was looking at, and I was like, all right, that's it. They're calling my name. And they came in this color pink and they came in like baby blue. And I was like, no, no, it's gonna be pink. This is what it's gonna be.
I had a retina operation back in January, and so I mean, I can see you just fine. But my right eye things are a little distorted, but that was interesting.
Well, the retina is quite a serious thing, but back to movies.
Yeah.
What else can I tell you, Mr. Gilbert? What else do you want to know?
What else do I want to know? We got to talk. Let me see where I wanted to go with this because um, you've told me so much about your father.
Oh, you know what? I have a funny story to tell you.
Well,
Here's
I was gonna
it's
ask
about
you
George.
what's something you've never told anybody about your father that you could tell, you know?
Well, I'll tell you two stories. One is fairly well known, and one and maybe not so well known that people don't know. First one is when people used to ask my father why he decided to represent writers or writer directors instead of actors, you know what his answer was? He said, well, as an agent, if I was going to get yelled at by my clients, I wanted to be yelled at in full sentences.
That makes
So
sense.
Snarky. My father
Yeah.
was snarky. But let's see, something that people didn't know. Okay. My father, who was a notorious tough guy, would tear up at the most simple things. So, like, if I were to tell him that I did something and he was proud of me, he would just tear up. Like, he'd just get all weepy and sort of he was the most strange dichotomy paradox of like super tough guy and big softy. And he when I was interviewing him in the documentary, the last interview I did of him, which he's in this light blue sweater, kind of grayish blue sweater with gray curtains behind him. He was in a hotel room, and I didn't know that he was going to die in less than a week. I knew he wasn't well, but he died at less than a week later. The camera was off, and we were changing the batteries, and he started to tear up. He was getting very weepy. I think he knew he was dying. And I said to him, what's up, Dad? What are you crying? Is everything okay? He said, yeah, I'm just reflecting over my wonderful life.
Tell me something. Did he tear up when he saw Michael Caine in drag?
No, I think he probably laughed.
I'm never gonna let that go.
No, I think he probably laughed. I mean, obviously everyone on set, it was kind of shocking to see back then, there weren't that many, you didn't see a lot of transgender people around. They weren't so much out of the shadows.
That was an early one for that.
Very. I mean, I remember in the like in the 90s in New York City, there was a part of town called the Meatpacking District, which was sort of notorious for all the trannies to hang out at night. I don't know if we're supposed to say transvestites. Um, just hang out at night. And I remember I would sometimes come out of this particular restaurant establishment and I'd have to go up to the corner there where they would hang out to get a cab. And sometimes if it was really late at night, it'd take a while to get a cab, a few minutes. And I'd end up having a really funny conversation with them because they were hella amusing, if you know what I mean. And they were also really protective. If you were nice to them and you engaged them in conversation, they were very protective of you. They wanted to make sure you're okay. And that's kind of New York mentality. And I always found them so fascinating. And um, it's just, and I'd ask them questions about, why they were doing what they were doing. And, they were transvestite prostitutes, so they were, working their corner, so to speak. But it was a really unusual thing to see up until I'd say 2000s when it started to become a little more mainstream. You didn't see them very much. They were very much in the shadows. And I just think on a personal level, I don't think I'll ever understand why anyone is trans, like why anyone makes the decision to change, to go from one gender to another. Um, I will never understand that because it's not something I go through. Um, but I do try to be sympathetic because I can
Hmm.
only imagine if somebody is willing to have that many surgeries because they're horrifically painful. And to go through the hormone therapy and to do all the psychological evaluations and all the hoops that you have to jump through, not to mention the actual physical pain of the surgeries to become something else. I really sympathize with them because that must mean their need to do it is so great that they're willing to go through all of that.
I think
Like,
one thing I do take
that's why I'm
issue with is
empathetic.
with children. I think, and I know this is controversial for me to say, but I'm going to say, I think if you can't get a license until you're 16 or can't get liquor until you're what, 19? I don't know. I don't drink, so I wouldn't know. I don't understand this whole idea of these adults saying their kids want to or trans kids or whatever. I don't understand that because of the
I
mindset
think,
of
Greg,
kids.
it's a very personal decision within each family because I actually know someone who has a trans kid. And
Okay.
she's a high school friend. And she told me that until her daughter, who became a son, had top surgery to remove the breasts, that he was suicidal. And if they hadn't done it, they would have no kid. And that's really severe. Like that child had such a need to do something. And, antidepressants weren't working. And she's a therapist. I mean, she was doing everything she could to try to make sure that she was protecting her child every step of the way. I know this to be a fact because I know her very well, and I know what an empathetic and kind and wonderful and decent person she is, and how much she just wanted her kid to be happy and safe in that order, you know, right? And so I don't think it's something that can be legislated. I don't think it's something that we should judge as people who are outsiders because we don't understand it, right?
I
I don't
don't
think
understand it. That's
Right. And I don't
something.
think even the parents of trans kids entirely understand it because each kid is individual. There is no one size fits all. It isn't like a driver's license because there's an emotional component and a psychological component that goes along with it that can be very dangerous. And because I'm sure this is not what she wanted for her kid, right? I'm sure she was, wanted her kid's life to be easier. That's all. And that she was hoping that this wasn't going to be a thing that she had to go through or that her child had to go through, right? But it did happen. And once it was happening, she had to make a decision to save her child's life. And I think if that is what it comes down to, I'm sure there are parents, just like who are parents who have, Munchausen by proxy and that do terrible things to their children. They're abusive in many other ways, I mean, if we're going to talk about abusive parents, it's not just trans, it's across the spectrum. And then there are parents who don't allow their trans kids to have surgeries and they do commit suicide. And that's just as abusive. So then the question just really becomes, should we as a government be making decisions for people, for individuals on a one size fits all basis? And my joke is that I'm 5'1" and one size fits all has never fit me. So I I sympathize greatly with trans people and their families because it is a very, very complicated issue and there is no one size fits all answer for anybody. And my heart breaks for everybody who has to go through it because I know it is difficult and painful. And so rather than be judgmental, I just try to be empathetic and I try to listen and I try to understand people's point of view because it doesn't affect me in any way, shape, or form, except how it affects the people around me who have to deal with that issue. If I see a trans person in my bathroom and they ask me for a tampon or whatever, I don't care. You know, I've seen straight men in the women's bathroom. That bothers me more because it's like, what are you doing in here?
Well, I'm usually in there cleaning.
Well, that's different. That's different. But I'm especially women's bathrooms, we have individual stalls. So like we don't really pay attention. We don't care, There's no communal toilet.
Actually, that's one of the big reasons I like working overnights is because cleaning washrooms is hellish during working hours.
Oh, I'm sure.
I was cleaning a women's washroom and a building I'm not in anymore, but and this female came in and I was like, I had the sign up for cleaning and she just said she had to go and she went into the washroom. I'm like, okay. I had to walk out of the washroom, but It took me longer than usual to do that washroom because people wouldn't stay out of it while I'm cleaning. So,
Well, when you gotta go, you gotta go.
yeah.
You
So
know,
overnights, it makes it so much easier because nobody's there.
well, anyway, getting back to the issues, life in is not simple. It's not, there are no one size fits all. And I think rather than being angry at the world and trying to lambaste and be judgmental of people, we all should do work a little harder at trying to be empathetic and understanding of people's plights and ask our government to do the same because it is not your job to protect other people's children.
That's true.
It is your job to protect yourself and the people around you you care about. And it is your job as a human being to be empathetic and to be a decent, respectful, dignified human being to other people. That's my basic philosophy in life. And when people violate that, I have no patience for it because we're all here on this planet and we have to learn to live together. And anyone who tries to divide us because we're different or we're other or we don't agree is not trying to make the world a better place. And therefore, I have no interest in listening. And that's really what my documentary is about, free speech. And that's exactly the point. I don't have to agree with people I don't agree with. I don't have to listen to them, but I can't cancel them. I shouldn't cancel them because we all need to have varying points of view to come to a consensus, to come to a place where we have some understanding amongst each other.
I think one of my favorite trans was Divine.
Divine was pretty divine.
You know what?
And thank God to Jeff for John Waters, right?
I've interviewed Cookie Mueller's son, and Cookie, his her son's told me that he's actually in Pink Flamingos as one of the babies sold to the lesbian couples.
That's funny.
He thought it was hilarious. Um, but
I almost
the,
played the little kid in Obsession because I was 4 years old when they made it.
you should
But
have.
well, I have blue eyes, and Geneviève Bujold had brown eyes. But when they
So
were considering an actress, well, she's supposed to be the same character, just, grown up. So when they were considering actresses that had dark hair and blue eyes, because they were considering other actresses before they cast Geneviève Bujold, there was some discussion. I don't remember any of this because, of course, I was 4 at the time, but there was some discussion my father told me about, oh, where your daughter can play the little girl. And I was like, missed my shot. My big break.
so you would have been the little girl that was kidnapped with her?
hmm
Okay.
And obviously she grows up and looks just like her mother, so I can't have blue eyes, and I have quite light, like sparkling light. You can't see very well through these glasses, but I have very light blue eyes, so um, blue-green eyes, so that would not have worked. And when I was a baby, I was like all eyes and lips. So I
Do you
missed my
remember? Do you
break.
know Divine was supposed to be on Married with Children before he passed away? And I like, oh man, I would have loved to have seen that.
Oh, that would have been funny.
That would have been hilarious. And of
Al
course,
Bundy and Divine, that would have been quite the episode.
yeah.
I feel like
And
the Al Bundys of the world are making a resurgence, though. I'm not too happy about that.
I love Married with Children. I love Married with Children because in a lot of these sitcoms, I can't relate to the characters. But in Married with Children, I've seen all those people around.
Well, sure.
That's not necessarily good or bad, but
Well, I
you know,
think that's why All in the Family was so
I
relatable.
loved all of it. Like Full House, for example, I can't relate to somebody um, who does stand-up comedy, or is a musician, or did what Bob Saget did. And maybe it's because, I'm I it's not the what I grew up with.
Well,
I
the average
knew
people don't hang out with artists, most,
exactly.
unless
So
you grow up in LA or New York or London. It's very rare to have, I mean, I grew up with predominantly artists, so I I didn't really get to know a lot of people who had jobs, normal jobs, beside like professional jobs, lawyer, doctor, until I got to college and I met other people's parents. Because I lived in the bubble of Los Angeles and New York. Though I would go to Italy every summer with my family, and people had sort of everyday jobs in Italy, but they were Italian, so of course they seemed cooler to me. I don't know why, but because
yeah,
Italians are just cool. I mean, when you hear Italian being spoken, it's just awesome. I mean, I have male friends who say that my attractiveness level goes up like 5 points when I suddenly start speaking Italian. So I should just run around speaking Italian all the time.
tell me, before Divine, there was of course Glenn or Glenda. Did you see that?
No, that's like before my time. Wow.
1953, I believe. That was
Hmm.
Ed Wood, and that was
Oh, Ed Wood, right.
Glenn or Glenda dealt with. I've only seen it once, and I liked it too. I don't know whether it was
I
whether it
mean, there was
was.
there was always Benny Hill.
I love Benny Hill.
And Bob Hope spent a whole lot of time in drag and nobody talked about it in a negative way, right?
Well, I think Glenn or Glenda was about the whole transvestite thing, or at least the cross-dressing thing, because I think Ed Wood was into that.
Yeah, and then there
Like,
was, the guys in Some Like It Hot.
oh, I love Something Like It Hot.
Jack Lemmon, spent a lot of time in drag. I mean, when
I
you think
love
about
that
it,
movie.
and there were plenty of actors who were cross-dressing for quite some time. And, when they were doing it as comedy, I guess it was all acceptable, but people didn't like it in reality. And that seems,
Dustin Hoffman and Tootsie,
oh, that was fantastic.
Robin Williams and Mrs. Doubtfire.
Okay, Robin Williams and Mrs. Doubtfire goes down for me as just the most hilarious transition. Tootsie was
What,
funny, but
you
it was
didn't think
poignant.
Rob Snyder and the hot chick was it?
No, I think I think you know, little furry Robin Williams as a dowdy old British woman was just brilliant. So, as a little British nanny, it was brilliant. So anyway, I mean, they'll say that, people will do all kinds of crazy things to get what they want in life, and that's definitely an example. I mean, Tootsie's another example. But and that movie was really a feminist anthem because it was like, he says it at the end of the movie, I think by being a woman, I've become a better man
There you go.
because he got to understand what it was like to live on the other side and become the word I've been using, empathetic to what it's like to be on the other side of things, to be discriminated against as a woman, to be, treated as a second class citizen, to be treated as a sex object, to be mistreated. And I'll go back to what you said earlier. I think white straight males are simply just experiencing what everybody else has been experiencing for a couple hundred years now. And though you have every right not to like it, because none of us likes it, um, I think it seems only fair that everybody should be going through it rather than one particular group of people who gets to be exempt from it. I mean, I think ideally, in an ideal world, no one should have to go through it, but that's just not going to happen. So, wear it as a badge of honor rather than as a victim, because you're not a victim. What you are is you're just part of the human race, and you're no longer exempt from living the same truths as the rest of us. You didn't think I was going to give it to you that way, did you?
Well, I was gonna say my truth is I work overnight and I avoid as many people as I can.
I actually am a people person. I'm not misanthropic. I actually like people. I am like I'm chit chatty with my grocery clerk, and wherever I go, I always try to bring a smile, and I ask people how their day is going, and I thank them and I say have a good day. It's amazing what you can do to change people's attitudes by just being kind and friendly. Now, not everybody. Occasionally you run into your misanthropic asshole who's going to, try to fuck with your energy, but I just don't let them.
Yeah, my answer to everything is get a cat. Get
Well,
a
I have four of
cat.
them. I have four of them, so
There you go. I was
four
going to
cats.
say, how did the industry folks respond to the movie you did on your father?
Well, so far everybody's loved it, but it's been a difficult sell because it doesn't have a lot of big stars. I have Nancy Allen and Vincent Spano in there, but for example, I didn't get Travolta, and Brian wasn't well enough.
What about Angie Dickinson?
I think she was, I mean, I tried, but she's kind of up there. So I think a lot of people have trouble with their memory when they get older, and I think they're afraid. And Michael Caine too. He said he was too old and he didn't remember. And I'm sure maybe he did, and maybe that was just a cop out. But he is up there, and not everybody wants to be on camera anymore and talk about the past. And I understand that, and it's also a hot topic talking about transgender issues. So he might have just wanted to dodge them, and I'm sure he knew I was going to ask about them because of, the movie. So I had to respect that. But that said, everybody likes it. I mean, even the top agents and nobody's told me they don't like it.
I
Um,
liked it.
Thank you. But
Hmm.
it's not easy to sell because it's a little different. It's a documentary with a lot of heart and a lot of humor, and though it's political and it's talks about civil rights and First Amendment rights and artists' rights to free speech and, rebellious, artists with a cause, um, it is, it's not a dry documentary that's kind of, just the facts, ma'am. It's, it's about, well, my father was a very gregarious, warm person, and I couldn't tell his story without telling it within the sort of same emotional fabric that was that my was he. My father was a gregarious, warm-hearted, loving, generous, fun person. And so I made a documentary though about a very serious subject that warms your heart and makes you laugh and sometimes makes you cry and makes you think. And people in marketing, when they market movies, like to put things in little boxes, like tick the box. This one, they don't know how to put it in a box yet. So I'm just going to keep winning awards until somebody figures it out because somebody's going to figure it out. So, that's my tenacity. My father was tenacious and I am too.
Well, he was involved in a lot of movies I enjoy. Like I've got Midnight Cowboy here as well. I got Blowout here. I almost
Well, that's a
said
great
Blow
film.
Up.
So is Midnight Cowboy. And he also was involved in movies most people don't think about. He sold Sweet Sweetback's Badass Song to Cinemation, selling the first all black film to distribution. And when he was asked about that, they said, we've been wrong for 200 years. They're entitled to 2 hours because people thought it was very anti-white. He represented the script for Malcolm X in the 70s, which, probably got him a lot of bizarre looks. Um, he, obviously made the first film to feature a trans lead in Dress to Kill. My father basically he did not agree with social convention. He did not agree with things that divided people. He felt we were all entitled to human rights and human dignities. And he treated people, he used to tell me that I should treat the waiter or the janitor better than I treat the CEO because their lives are harder because they work harder for their money. Because their lives are harder because they have less money for the same amount of hours that the CEO works. And you need to be considerate and empathetic for the fact that everybody works hard for their money, some harder than others, but not everyone gets to live a comfortable life. So always be a decent person. Treat service people with the utmost respect. Um, because their lives, they interact with people all day long. So I think he was really he was a humanist. He really believed in being kind to other people. He was a pacifist too. He did not like war, though nobody would believe that because he was such a tough guy and he was a bit of a yeller sometimes. And, he would take you to task. But, he didn't believe in unnecessary wars. Wars in general, he just thought were, chess games for political players and money interests. Um, and he hated seeing young boys, particularly, and later young boys and women, dying for other people's ambitions and greed and wealth. So, my father as a producer was a very extraordinary character. And I endeavor to be very much like him in those respects. I have his tenacity. I also believe that I can move mountains, though I haven't physically moved one yet in my life. My life is not over yet.
Yeah,
There's
but are
still,
you able to move Sophie?
she is a mountain of a cat. And there's another cat around here. I don't know where he is, but he's 18 pounds. So I feel like I'm moving a mountain every time I pick him up.
Well, you know what? Next year marks what it'll be the 45th anniversary of Dress to Kill.
True. And 2026 will be the 50th anniversary of Obsession. And Sony is going to release a 4K version. Spoiler
You
alert.
go. There you go.
Hmm. So, all good news. I don't really have much control over what happens to Dress to Kill because it's MGM, and MGM owns and controls it. But since I own and control the rights to Obsession, I have a lot more to say about what goes on. But I'm going
Yeah.
to sell those rights to another company, assuming we get all the paperwork done. Because I really want to make sure this company is going to make sure that my father's legacy is secure and that the film continues to be exhibited and shown and it doesn't just, end up on a shelf somewhere. So I am working very hard to protect my father's legacy. And if your viewers will help me out, please, get on the internet and share your joy at that. Um, and I will continue to give you some announcements and updates.
Well, like I said, I've got three of these all one movie.
Well, and if anyone wants to contact me on social media, I'm on
Mhm.
Instagram at the Andria Litto. My name is spelled Andria Litto, the Andria Litto. And you can also find me at Facebook on the same name, Andria Litto, writer, Andrea Litto, writer. And I'm on IMDb and I have a website, which is my name, andrealitto.com. So I keep putting all my information, my press releases, any information, news is going to be there. You're going to find it on those channels. I'm also on Blue Sky at Musdree, Blue Sky.
Are there any
Musdree,
clouds in
M-U-S.
those blue skies?
Yes, Mussedri. Blue Sky is the new alternative to Twitter. I'm also on Twitter at Musdree, but I'm checking it less and less because it's become quite the hellscape there. Um, so unless it turns around, and it
I
can.
don't know. I've got a Twitter account, but I haven't been on there in ages. Um,
I
I
have
find,
a YouTube channel as well, so you
yeah.
can find me there, and you can find the trailers to the film on the YouTube channel. So just Google my name and you'll find it, or Google My Father Moves Mountains, and there's two trailers there, one without subtitles and one with.
And folks, I've seen it, and I can attest that it's great. It's awesome, and I really appreciate you coming on here. And
Thank you.
this is your third time on here, you know, and
I will come back anytime you ask, Greg. I give you my word, and I'm saying it on live so everybody can hear me.
well, you know what? Dress to Kill celebrates 45 years next year, so you're welcome to come back on for that or anything else that you're doing. Like, don't ever hesitate to reach out. I'm really happy you reached out to me for this. for to do this, because I've had people turn me down interviews because they ask me how many subscribers I have or how many list. I don't know all that stuff.
You're doing this because you love it, not because you're trying to make a bunch of money at it. And I have to appreciate
Exactly.
that because that is art for art's sake.
Hmm.
And who is this guy named Art anyway?
Exactly. But I've had people do that to me, and I'm like, um,
Don't even think about them. Move on.
y- yep,
Move on. Just to think about what's good and keep going forward. Because the stuff from the past and the people who don't, appreciate you, not worth your energy.
not worth my energy. Yeah, absolutely, absolutely. By the way, speaking of obsession, I think I might be wrong, but isn't John Lithgow up for an Oscar or up for a Golden Globe for Conclave?
I believe he is. I love John Lithgow. Obsession, of course, introduced John Lithgow. It was his first film. And he's a fantastic actor. But Brian found a lot of amazing actors because he had this wonderful casting agent named Lynn Stallmaster,
Hmm.
who found Andy Garcia, Janice France. Um, I'm trying to think of some of the others that made it out of Brian De Palma movies. But he was casting was one thing that my father and Brian, really took a lot of time and effort to do and to find the right people because my father had a point of view about actors and scripts. He used to say, get a good actor, a good actor really is like right for the part, and then let them do their thing. Directors should give them a little guidance and and sometimes, tweak something in a performance here and there because they want to get a particular thing. But when you hire good actors, you don't have to do very much. Your job gets easier, you know? So they would spend a lot of time trying to find the right actor because then their job was easier, both as director and producer.
There you go. Well, I love the films of Brian De Palma, and like I said, I wish you luck on this. Is it still playing in any festivals? Is
The film
anything
festival,
come?
yeah, the London Liftoff Festival is right now.
Hmm.
Currently, you can Google London Liftoff, and they have a site you can vote for the film if you want to for the audience awards. I would really appreciate it if you guys would do that. And so that's the current film festival. There's more festivals coming up that I'm waiting for notifications on. It's like rolling notifications. You just never know what you're going to get. Um, but also the Academy of Digital Arts and Sciences, which is the academy that put on the Anthem Awards, has invited me to become a member, and they've asked me to submit the film for their other award called the Webby Awards. So I'll be doing that as well. So hopefully, I'll be able to announce that I've won a Webby as well, which would make me feel very good. You know,
Would you be able to submit this for the Oscars?
I can't yet. I have to get it distributed first.
Yeah, because I mean, like I said, especially where Midnight Cowboy won Best Picture in
No, absolutely.
1960. Yeah.
Once this is distributed, I'm definitely going to work on an Oscar campaign. But if I can give my friends a plug, there's a wonderful documentary on Amazon called Bad Faith, and everyone should watch it. Um, my friends, Christopher Jones, Steve Jackie, John Patak, who's in my doc, um, they all were participants in making this film and producers and editors, and because docs are really made in the editing room. And I have to say that. Um, they did an amazing job, and it's about a very scary situation which is going on in North America, particularly in the United States, but even so also in Canada, that we should all be aware of. And this doc is in Oscar contention, and it's on the short list of docs being considered for nominations. So, please see the film, because when you support good documentary filmmakers, you're supporting not just their independence as well, just like me. And every festival turned them down until they finally got into Palm Springs. And now they're finally, here they are in Oscar contention. So I'm trying to do the same thing, kind of a grassroots movement of getting the film festivals to pay attention so somebody buys it, hoping somebody like Amazon Prime or Apple or et cetera. and then you have a shot at the Oscars. So
Hmm. Well, I wish you the best for that, and we'll see what we could do to push that forward. I think it would be fantastic, even further for your father's legacy.
I think he would enjoy it immensely. In fact, if he were here, he'd tear up. I'm sure
There
of
you
it.
go. Now, would he tear up as much as he would seeing Michael Caine in drag?
Well, I don't think he teared up for that. I knew you couldn't resist.
Is Michael Caine upset that that Margot Robbie was chosen instead of him for to play Barbie?
No. I know you're going to get mileage out of this, but I think Michael Caine's
Oh,
very content with his career and his life.
yeah, we love Michael Caine.
And he has a lovely wife too, and they've been together forever. So, you know, good thing.
There you go. There you
I
go.
wish people like that all the happiness in the world. I do.
Absolutely, absolutely. Well, I wish you all the happiness in the world, and I
Thank
thank you
you.
for, yeah, thank you for continuing to come on here and promote. And like I said, the door is always open, you want to come on here and
Deal.
yeah,
Deal.
absolutely.
Well, it's been a
Absolutely.
pleasure, Greg, and I thank you very much for letting me plug my film. And please go out and see My Father Moves Mountains either at the Anthem Awards winners site or at the London Liftoff Festival. Please vote for the film if you do see it on the Liftoff Festival. Check out my website, andrialitto.com, or, find me on social media at the Andria Litto at Instagram or Muse3 on Blue Sky or Twitter. And, if you're not nice, I will block you. It's not cancel culture. That's just my personal preference.
I had to block somebody recently, so yeah, I get it.
You have a
Yep.
great day, Greg. You have an amazing afternoon.
I like people of all walks.
Me too. I like people like my wine. I don't care what color it is as long as it's good.
There you go. Would you mind doing a plug for my show before we close off?
Oh, yes. Well, this is Python Gilbert, my favorite Python Gilbert, with his wonderful podcast about Hollywood. And please stay tuned, tune in, check out all his amazing guests, and come back.
Absolutely, absolutely. And next year, of course, Dress to Kill celebrating 45 years.
I'll
Never
be there.
know. I'll definitely have you back. And if you want to, if you want to sneak Nancy Allen in here with you,
I'll see if I can arrange it. Okay?
get her to jump over the subway rail.
Turnstile.
Yeah,
I
there
don't know
you
if she can do
turnstile.
that anymore. That takes a little bit of athleticism.
Are you kidding me? And Carrie, she was like folding herself in half. I can't do that.
Well, I don't think she can do that anymore,
I
Greg.
bet. You know what? I bet she could probably still do it.
Well, I'll ask her. How about that?
I don't know. I said that to her. I said, because I'm watching PJ Souls keep frigging it all up, and the thing. And she was like doing the jumping jacks. And when she did the setup, she was like totally folding herself right in half doing that. And I was like, Nancy's in great shape.
I'm sure she tries to maintain her shape, but as you know, it gets harder as we get older.
I know because I'm already falling apart. Had a retina operation, a root canal. I'm like Rodney Dangerfield. I'm afraid to go to the bathroom.
All right, on that happy note,
Well, that's what Rodney Dangerfield said about getting older.
it's true.
Yeah.
I'm going to say adieu.
God, God
So
bless you. Thank
long,
you so much.
farewell, auf Wiedersehen, good night.
Absolutely. Absolutely. You take care.
Ciao. Bye.
Bye bye.
Bye.